It's time for the College of Bass with Kevin Van Dam and Steve Panaz.
Hey everybody, welcome to week 8 of College of Bass. I got to admit this is a little bit bittersweet tonight because this is our last episode for the year. So have fun. We're going to have a blast. We got some great giveaways tonight. We're going to dedicate the entire episode to you guys tonight. So feed us your questions and we're going to have a ton of fun. Hey, and remember, if you missed any of these previous shows, they're housed on the YouTube channel for both Kevin's page as well as Plain Old Fishing. So you can catch them back then, and I can guarantee you they're worth going back and watching them because they're loaded with great fishing information. Hey, Kevin, welcome, man. It's good to see you.
Man, I am excited to be back. So I'm down in Rayburn, Texas. You always, every week, are like, you got a new background this week. Well, down here, it's challenging to find internet service anywhere. So I'm at Rayburn country actually at Brandon's hotel room here because it's the only place where we got enough speed to stream. But I'm excited, man. I've got to fish in the morning again tomorrow. I've had a good week so far.
Yeah.
Conditions look good.
Congrats on a very strong start this week, man.
Yeah. No, it's good. I love Sam Rayburn. It's a place I've got a lot of history. I won a Bassmaster Invitational here a long time ago. The first time I ever seen the lake, I set the 5-fish record. My first competition day ever here. So it's a great place that has a lot of great memories. And around here, everybody lives and breathes bass fishing. This whole area revolves around the bass in this lake.
That's really cool. Now you guys are forecast to have some pretty big wind tomorrow. Do you think that's going to affect a lot of anglers?
Yeah, I always say the wind is your friend, but, out here it can get real rough. It makes it hard to move around. And with the lake level the way that it is right now, it's just right at full pool. It can muddy up some of the areas and things like that too. We had big storms the start of yesterday and, got a pretty good batch of rain from that. So it muddied the back of the creeks and things like that. So it's been changing every day, but that's normal. I mean, it's early spring fishing, water temperatures are on the rise. This lake is about to bust wide open any day. So I'm hoping it's tomorrow while I'm fishing.
So under the MLF format, is it hard to take a break? I mean, do you feel like you lose some of the momentum or understanding what the fish are doing?
In these first rounds, where there's 40 guys the first day and then the opposite group of 40 fishes the second day, having that day off, things change a lot. So being able to, to jump right back in there, it's easy to lose that momentum. I like fishing every single day, but I also like having, the so-called day off. I've had a busy day today doing media stuff and television and other podcasts and things like that. But I'm looking forward to it. So tomorrow's the knockout round. I need to make the top 8. The first winners of the first 2 rounds, they already move on. So there's just 8 more of us. And Friday's the championship round. And I'd really like to be there because, each day, after each cut, we go back to 0. And so it's like a fresh slate. And you have to bring it every single round. You have to be on your A game. And, if you can get off to a fast start, things can go real well for you. So I'm hoping to do that tomorrow.
That's awesome. Hey, we got a great show tonight. We're going to take viewer questions the entire night. So start feeding us your questions as we go through. And we got some great giveaways in addition to our regular giveaways, which is fun. We also got a couple really awesome guests tonight. Edwin Evers is going to be on board as well as Brian Brosdahl, co-host of College of Ice. So he's going to be coming in a little bit. Hey, we need to congratulate Brian Silwanis. He actually sent in his address, Kevin, and gave us the pronunciation of his name with it. So you did a great job getting him out last week. But he's out of Rockledge, Florida, so he's going to win the Plano prize pack. And everybody watching tonight is eligible to win this last prize pack tonight. It's got a couple great edge boxes, the KVD signature bag, some great lures from Strike King, and the College of Bass Yeti tumblers. So we're going to have a winner tonight, so stick around tonight at the end, which is really cool. Hey, we've also got in honor of episode 8 tonight, we've got a great special from Plano. Buy 2 KVD worm file speed bags, and you get a free College of Bass Yeti Rambler. Hey, Kevin, I know you're a big fan of these speed bags. I am as well.
Yeah, the speed bags are awesome for plastics. We have the large size and then the standard size. And, when you have baits like rage craws or rage swimmers, that come in those clam packaging, you need to keep them from getting bent or kinked or anything like that. You don't want to have the integrity of the action. So these speed bags are designed perfect for your plastics. I have, 8 to 10 always in my boat, and I just change them out. I keep all my, again, rodents in one, or drop shot, baits, whatever it is. And then just, use what I need for that day, or have them in the boat. A lot of times I have them all. So they're just a great system to organize your plastics.
I still have yellow ones. I still have blue ones that date back a number of years. But they really are awesome if you're looking for soft plastic storage. Hey, and by the way, that special runs through Sunday. It's already up and running on the PlanoMolding.com site. So go there, and we know it's going to run out. We were running fairly short on some of these mugs now. So if you want this, take advantage of it. Order it tonight. And we did have a question from Daryl Ekstrom. He said, hey, are there any mugs left? And there are, but they're running out. And he wanted one to match, believe it or not, his College of Ice mug, which he's been a lot of viewers. So
the other thing too is all the proceeds from these go to the Professional Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. So you're helping a great cause, and something that's obviously great for all of us. So. And it's cool. I mean, that Yeti Rambler mug is the one sponsored product. I use it every single day. I mean, I put coffee in the morning. I've got it full of, right now we got Aquafina, but I want to have it ice cold. I just keep it. I have it with me all the time in my truck, and it's in the boat. It's just perfect, so they really are amazing.
Hey, last week we had Plano Pro Ryan Latimer on, and B-Lat, it was really obvious from the comments that he's got a very strong following, which was cool. But the topics for the night were electronics and deep cranking, and we had tons of questions. So I want to get to as many as we can right now. We got the first one is actually from Matt Ortloff. He says, how far past where you think the fish are do you cast your deep cranks?
Well, that's the thing. So with a crankbait like a Strike King XD series, really any of the sizes, they have a real steep dive angle. So you've got to be at least a third farther of the distance for that bait to get down to the bottom in most cases, so it's not going to get its maximum depth. And so if you make a 60-yard cast with a 6XD, for instance, I want to have the fish halfway between, so I know that I'm in the zone, the bait's down there on the bottom. So it's all about feel and positioning. It's something you can get figured out, but that bait needs to be on the bottom where the bass are at.
That's awesome. Hey, Bill Tharp asked a question. He said, what's the best way to fish for spawning fish that you can't actually see?
Well, we end up having to do this at a lot of the lakes we go to, especially, places in Florida and that where the water's dirty or they're scattered in grass. And the biggest thing there is just trying to understand what they spawn around. So if you're fishing along a lily pad edge or a Kissimmee grass line or something like that, or just down a bank, next to a stump, when you get to a high percentage zone or hole in the grass, leave that bait soak a little longer. You want it to sit there, just like if you were sight fishing for one. It takes a lot of, sometimes 2 or 3 casts to antagonize them into biting or more. So you have to think about that when you're blind fishing for spawning fishes. Just be more patient, let the bait sit longer, and in those high percentage zones, make multiple casts.
Hey, we just had a question come in from Jeff Kotelik. He says, do you think the Mega 360 will take a backseat to the Mega Live that's coming out?
I'll tell you that I love the Mega 360 because it's so good at seeing the structure around the boat. I mean, it's probably the main reason that I'm in the knockout round here at Sam Rayburn. I'm using it to follow these grass lines. I can see the holes in the grass. I'm following the edges. I'm casting to them. I'm casting to these irregularities to get the bites that I'm getting. So I can't imagine. I haven't used the live yet. So what I want to do is use them both in unison. So I don't know if we'll be able to see them at the same time on the same screen, but I will have 2 graphs if I have to use both. There's no doubt they each have.
You might be going to 5 graphs.
Might have to have 6. You never know. I mean,
wow, that's awesome.
When you're competing as a professional, and people will say, "Well, man, that's just crazy," or "I can't afford to spend that." But this is what I do for a living. You have to be competitive. You have to embrace technology, and right now we're in the golden era of technology, and it's just such an improvement to any angler's game. And if you don't have it, you're behind. So you have to embrace that technology.
Hey, we had a question from Randall Heron. He says, talk about upgrading hook sizes on cranks and lipless baits.
Yeah, so I use my Mustad KVDs, and they're ultra short. I mean, they're an extra short shank hook, but they got a real wide gap. So it allows me to upsize and not have the hooks tangle. So like a KVD 1.5, I put 2 number 2s, a half-ounce red-eye shad, 2 number 2s. Jerk baits, if you put too big of hooks on them, they start to sink and you lose the balance. So baits like top waters and jerk baits that are real weight sensitive, you got to be a little more careful on your hook sizes. So I experiment, but I really like to go, as a general rule, on my crankbaits to go up at one size from what they come with. So if they come with round bend number 4s, I'll go to the 2s. If they come with number 2s, I'll go to a number 1 or even a 1/0 in those KVD extra wide gaps. It just is, I just have so much confidence in them. When you get a bite with them, it just locks them in place. That style, and the gap is so wide because the shank is so short. You're not giving anything up from going away from a standard round bend.
It's amazing though how hooks have really improved over the last decade, and even the last 5-6 years.
The sharpness and the durability. These black nickel finishes. If you bend one or nick one, you can sharpen them, but it's better just to replace it. You can't make it as sharp as the factory can.
That's amazing. Hey, we got another question. John Meyer asked a question. Where do you run your sensitivity and contrast on your Mega and your side imaging?
Yep. So the biggest thing you want to do is look at your picture clarity. So I really look at the setup of it. And I think a lot of people get some interference and stuff when they're trying to adjust the sensitivity or contrast because of actually electric issues in their boat rigging. So I have dedicated power to my electronics. I mean, they don't go through the master switch on the console. I have straight power to the units on the front and straight power to the units on the console. And that makes a big difference in the clarity that you see on the screen. I mean, I do screenshots and people say, man, mine isn't that clear. Well, I finally figured out that most people don't have their electronics probably wired right to get that. So you don't really have to change the sensitivity a lot. The only time that I do is if you're really trying to scan way out. Say I'm at Lake St. Clair or Lake Erie, and I'm just covering a big flat looking for boulders, and I'm trying to look out 100 or 125 feet further out. That's when you want to adjust. You want more power, right? So you increase the sensitivity. The other thing that I do is experiment with the different palette colors for it. My favorite is the amber 2, is kind of that amber base, but like for looking for brush piles and things like that, the green really stands out. And for certain people, different colors just show things better, especially in subtle detail. So I know a lot of people like the blue. Everybody's across the board. That's why they have all the different colors, so you can personalize it to what your eyes see the best in that situation. And it's just great to change from one to the other and just see how a grass line looks, or a brush pile, or a rock pile,
Or how it looks in the sun. I know, as you know, I run Garmin, and those are the 2 colors that I go to a lot, especially the emerald green and the amber. Yeah. Hey, another question on color. Justin Evans asked, he says, does braid color matter? Can fish see bright colors? I've got a strong feeling on this. Yeah,
I do too. They absolutely see braid, and I think they feel braid. It has more, it doesn't cut through the water like fluorocarbon does. It displaces water, and I think they can feel the vibration off big diameter braid. But I color if I'm using straight braid on a frog or a swim jig or anything like that, I'm going to use a black marker. I know, like Greg Hackney, he likes red. He likes to color his red. But we want to darken it up, especially if you're fishing grass and stuff. Make it blend in with the surroundings if you can, or use a fluorocarbon leader. On a spinning rod, I'm pretty much using a fluorocarbon leader, and I will make that leader longer in real clear water. I don't want those fish I don't want them to see that braid. I'm trying to do everything to camouflage it, but I like to see it. So, with a spinning rod, using that nice bright yellow braid with a fluoro leader is great. But on a bait caster, I'm using that, dark green braid so it blends in with the surroundings.
I got a funny story. We were doing a television episode one time. I had a charter captain mic'd up, and he didn't know we were listening to him, and he was complaining to his first mate that Panaz brought all these half these rods with the bright green line. First 6 bites were on the bright green line, so I sent him a spool for Christmas. I thought it was a fun day.
The fish will see it and follow it to the bait, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, Pete Heine says, do longer shadows mean fish is further away when using side imaging? I think side imaging is still one of those things that a lot of people still don't understand completely.
Yep. So when you see a large shadow on your side imaging, that object is just taller off the bottom. Okay. So like a piece of timber or a brush, the higher it is, the longer the shadow is going to be. The shorter it is, the shorter that shadow is going to be. So if you see it off of a fish, it's going to be a big fish. I've seen very few bass ever on side imaging that throw big shadows, typically when you see a group of them, they're going to be real light colored. The bass is real, almost white on your side imaging, and you're not going to see much of a shadow. Now, what I have seen big shadows of is like the Asian carp on Kentucky Lake, or earlier this year when I was down at Texas, I was practicing for red crest at Lake Palestine, and I got into an area and there's giant buffalo. I mean, I saw these fish on my Mega 360, and I'm like, whoa, what are those? And I threw a crankbait out there, and I caught about a 40 pounder. And I'm like, oh, now I know what they are. I mean, when you got a fish that big, they're going to do that. But typically, for your, a 1 pounder or 2 pound bass, or 3 pound bass, it's not gonna show a big shadow. The shadow is more the height of it, or how close it is to it. The more intense the image is on it, you're going to see it. So at 30 feet. It's going to throw a bigger shadow than it is at 100 feet, just like a flashlight beam in the dark. That's how you got to look at, how a flashlight beam hits a tree or an object, and the shadow that it leaves behind it, just like if you were standing out there in the dark. That's how side imaging looks.
Hey, this next question is from Joe Treybolt. I think I pronounced his name right. He says, how do you maintain your health? I mean, I look at you, you're looking like you're buff. You look like you're ripped. I mean, you're just bouncing around all the time. But you know what? I mean, I know a lot of anglers, and I'm dealing with it right now with fishing elbow and things like that. What do you do to keep in shape?
One of the most important things to do is, just like any athlete, is you need to stretch before you start your day. I do finger stretches, arm stretches, elbow, shoulders, knees, all of that. Just take 10 minutes when you're getting ready before you go out there and stretch everything out. And when you get there, like in cranking season, the worst thing you could do is pull up on your first spot and bomb a 70-yard cast with a 10XD out there. You want to ease into it. You got to warm up, just like any NFL player would, or a hockey player, or any other athlete. You want to warm up, and you definitely have to stretch out before you get out there and do it, and do stretches specifically for those areas, for your wrists, your elbows, and your hands. That's the most important things. Stretch your shoulders out. Spend some time doing that. I have never been a huge workout fan but as I've gotten older, I've had to. I do sit-ups in the morning. I do some push-ups. I'm not lifting heavy weights and doing extreme things like that, but just things that cardio-wise to go, because the most important thing you can do as a professional angler is be 100% on your game for all 8 hours. If you're getting tired at the end of the day, you're not going to reach your true potential.
That's amazing. I'm in actual treatment. There was a point where I could not pick up a mug like this with my hand. It was that bad, and we're getting there. So we're working with a company called Stay Active. So we're going to keep people posted on how that goes forward. Hey, I'd like to bring in Edwin Evers tonight. Everybody knows Edwin's a stud. I mean, he's the winner of the 2019 Red Crest, the MLF Bass Pro Tour Stage 2 in Conroe, and he won the Bass Pro Tour Angler of the Year, which is really fun. Edwin, welcome to College of Bass. Great to see you, man.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited because both you and Kevin are in first place going into tomorrow.
We are. We're back to first.
We're just hoping to both be there at the end of the day.
Right.
So tell us a little bit of how the week's gone for you so far down at Sam Rayburn.
It's been kind of a difficult week. I have to remind myself multiple times, hey, this is Sam Rayburn and not some other lake. I am blown away by the lack of fish catches and how tough it is. I feel like this is one of the lakes in the country that I know really well, just as Kevin does, that we fished it so many times throughout the year. And I'm still scratching my head, but I'm really looking forward to tomorrow because I feel like I'm one day closer to figuring them out and getting better with those fish. So it's just, I think it's that funny window right before fish maybe go up to spawn. And I'm sure this cold front had a lot more effect on them than I gave credit for. And, there's been a lot of pressure, but, we'll get them figured out. It's going to bust wide open. I guarantee you before the week's over.
Yeah.
I asked
full
Kevin
moon on Sunday, so it's coming.
Hey, I'd asked Kevin a little bit earlier, is having a day off, does that, do you like it, or does it kind of make you lose your mojo a little bit?
Some days I like it, and today I'm glad I had it. I needed to clear my head after my day yesterday, and I'm in a lot better state of mind right now than I would have been if I had to go up and start fishing at 8 o'clock in the morning, just after such a brutal day of trying everything that I know to catch bass, so today was one of those days that I really liked having a day off, just be able to think about it and regroup.
Hey, we've had a ton of questions come in. I'd like to ask both of you guys this first one. The question that came in, he says, do you use fluorocarbon on spinning rods? So how do you guys set up your spinning rods? And obviously there can be some challenges with heavier fluoro on there, but talk to me, Edwin, if you'd start on that. How do you like to fish your fluorocarbon?
I like to have braid with a fluorocarbon leader. You have a lot less issues as far as line twist, and you can cast braid so much further. It's just a lot softer, more limp line than fluorocarbon. I guess there's probably a few instances if I'm throwing like a little spy bait or a little crankbait or something that I want that fluorocarbon, but for the most part, I'm all braid with a fluorocarbon leader.
Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, I'm similar. I do probably throw fluorocarbon a little more. I like to throw, my deep, small swim baits and things like that on straight fluoro, just because, the sink rate on it, it just works good. And like you say, for a spy bait, braid just has the buoyancy to it. So if you need something that, you need to keep it down or have it in the middle of the water column, it just is straight fluoro still an advantage, but more and more, I'm using more braid with a fluorocarbon leader, always a fluorocarbon leader. And I like a pretty long leader in clear water, but just advantages of, the distance and the sensitivity and just not having the headaches of having that. I call them woofers when you make that cast and you get a big ball of fluorocarbon at the first guide. It just, most pros now are primarily using braid with a fluorocarbon leader for almost everything spinning.
So when you say long leader, Kevin, how long are you going?
I use a 30-foot leader a lot, especially on the Great Lakes and that, down here, if you're sight fishing around in the bushes and things like that, you don't need a very long leader. A 10-foot leader is fine. But on the Great Lakes and that real clear water, I've just seen them be real line shy to that braided line. I don't want them to see it at all, even up in the water column. So I tend to use a longer leader than most.
Edwin, how long are you running typically?
I don't like reeling the leader into my reel. I feel like there's been some times when I'll go to make a cast and that knot, for whatever reason, will catch somewhere on that bail. So generally, I'm listening with ears wide open here to Kevin's. But for me, my leader is always, it never gets into my reel unless I'm drop shotting. If I'm drop shotting, then I'm just dropping it straight down off the side of the boat. But if I'm casting it, I don't want that leader down, that knot, into my reel, because I feel like there's some times, it may happen 1 in 20, but somehow that knot will get entangled into that spinning reel when I open the bail and it doesn't come off properly.
Yeah. The one thing I bet you is you use an FG knot, I'm guessing. I don't do anything but an FG knot.
I just haven't taken the time to learn it.
It is. If one piece of advice that I can give everybody out there tonight is learn the FG knot. It's so much better than any of the other ones for coming off your reel. It's the only way to go. it's not even a knot. It's like a Chinese cinch knot. And it just never, if you tie it right, it just never fails. And it's made a big difference for me for my braid to fluorocarbon connection.
I need to try.
Sorry. Hey, we got a question from Chris Fryer for Edwin. He says, what are your two to three favorite Berkley baits for this time of year?
Oh man, this time of year, with fish, down here where we're at, getting ready to spawn and those kinds of things, you got to think about the Berkley General. Its version of a stick worm is a really, really great bait. The Pit Boss is another great bait as far as flipping in bushes down here. Letting the bait sit when fish are spawning, and then you'd have to throw in it'd be tough between a topwater and like a war pig. A war pig's their version of a lipless crankbait, and it's just hard to beat that pre-spawn bite with a lipless crankbait. I love it, and it's a lot of fun to throw.
That's awesome. Hey, we had a question from Troy Roach for both of you guys. Would you, what advice do you have on fishing as a co-angler? I mean, meaning, how do you be more successful as a co-angler is the way I guess I read that question.
You go first, Kevin.
Okay. So the biggest thing is watch the guy on the front of the boat real close, see how efficient he is. If you're going down the bank and he's flipping bushes, you don't want to flip the same bushes with the same bait behind him. You got to throw something different, or you got to fish the stuff that's in between. You want to pick apart the things that they're leaving, but if you're out on a big expansive grass flat, and say he's throwing a red eye shad and catching them like that, you can probably do the same thing right behind him because he can't cover every square inch of it. So, that's the biggest thing is just pay real close attention to the guy in the front and do what he's not doing, in between those areas, and where it is more open, you can do what he's doing and still be successful.
I'll add to that. That's a great point, Kevin. Everything that you said. I've always said that I think the fastest way to become the best fisherman you possibly can is to be a co-angler and just to learn as much as you can off all the different anglers. And I think that's the biggest thing as co-anglers is to just try to learn. And if you take that day and you approach that day and you tell the guy in the front of the boat, hey man, I'm just here to learn, he's going to open up to you more than a guy that says, hey, are you on fish? I need to catch 20 pounds and what do I need to do? And somebody that's real aggressive. So I look at it as a guy that's going to be laid back and just, let that just learn, good or bad, off any of those pros that you possibly can. And then just to add a little bit to what Kevin was saying, if a guy is flipping bushes, a lot of times they have a tendency to flip one side of it or the same side of it, or they only, they flip it in there and they bring it up, let it go back to the bottom and then reel it in. As a co-angler, maybe you need to up your weight size to where you get a faster fall, or maybe just leave it in that bush 2 or 3 times longer than that pro or the guy in the front of your boat is doing, or just like Kevin said, do something completely different. Try to get a reaction strike, a top water or a wacky worm, a slower bite out in front of that stuff. So, and that's just all in a bush scenario, but there's always little intricacies that you can do differently and put a whooping on the guy in the front a lot of times.
Hey, Michael Cummins asked, he says, he has a problem finding the right speed when he's cranking. I guess it'd be interesting to hear both you guys' approach on this. I mean, how do you narrow down the speed for that day that you're on the water and the bait that you're using?
Go ahead.
You're the cranking man. I mean, you are by all means.
So speed definitely, speed kills for sure. And it's really about this time of the year, the water temperature, the conditions that you have. But, once the water warms up, faster is usually better than slower, but it can vary. I mean, the cover that you're in, sometimes if you're in thick grass, you're cranking grass or something like that, you need to slow it down just because it's hard for the fish to find the bait. You want it to rip free, to stop, to deflect off the cover a little bit more. So the biggest thing is experiment until you get a positive reaction, until you get a good bite. And the way they bite the bait should tell you if you're doing it right or wrong. If they're barely hooked and just with one little hook on the back hook on the tip of their lip, they didn't really, you didn't get them to really react real well to it. So, that's what I'm doing is paying real close attention to that, varying that speed. I'm changing speeds a lot, trying to get that bait to deflect off the cover, starting and stopping a lot, doing a lot of different things until they can. I prefer, for the majority of the crankbait fishing that I do, I use a 6-2-1 reel that brings in 25 inches per turn. And I'm a little more aggressive than some people. I like to wind that fast. It's my comfort level. It's what I've grown accustomed to. I know a lot of people like to use a faster reel and try to force themselves to slow down. My nature is that I'm pretty high strung and pretty fast paced. So I need a little bit slower reel than most people. And I kind of speed myself up for it, but I just love the feel that I get out of that.
I got a story for everybody that goes right along with this question. So we're at an event at Lake Gunnersville, and Kevin dominates this event. And the water temperature, correct me, I'm not going to be 100% on this, but it's like in the mid 40s, like mid to high 40s. And, I leave that event scratching my head, but I remember a few bass that I caught. It'd be that last 10 feet, and I'd reel that bait in real fast and make another cast, and one would get it. Well, Kevin ends up winning the event or doing really good, and he's burning that lipless crankbait, that entire week in a situation where, me as a younger angler back, this is 10, 15 years ago, was thinking, man, colder water, slow it down a little bit. But that bass told me, hey, right that last 10 feet, you need to reel it faster. And am I right, Kevin? You won that event or did really good burning that lipless crankbait in really cold water. So like as Kevin says, you've got to just experiment. Just because it's maybe cold water, a lot of times, it could be a stop and a go and a slow retrieve. But then there's also times with those high pressure systems that you've got to burn that bait to get those fish to react.
Yeah, you always got to experiment and listen to the fish. It's all about paying attention to exactly what you were doing when you get a bite. It doesn't matter if you're flipping, cranking, drop shotting, whatever, whatever you were doing when that fish bit, you want to duplicate it again. I still am going to keep experimenting, but when you get that real positive response, that's pattern fishing 101, is just to duplicate the same scenario.
Hey, Junior Figueroa asked a question. He says, when the pros say, and I heard this multiple times already this week, that the bass weren't positioned right, what exactly does that mean? Explain that for questions. And by the way, this is the winning question for Kevin has picked this as the winning question for a College of Bass Yeti Rambler. So, Junior, we're going to need you to send us your address so we can ship you one. But it's a great question for both you guys.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay. So a lot of it is if we, when I see them cranking, for instance, and they go through and side image a school of fish on a ledge or whatever, I want to see them, set up on that structure, on break. And when I say structure to me is not a brush pile or rocks, or that structure is a depth change. It's a contour change. And, if they're suspended 5 foot off the bottom, above it, or off the edge, that's not in a feeding zone. You want them, pretty much right down near the bottom and right on that highest spot. That means they're in the zone where they're in position to ambush, a pot of shad or anything that's coming by like that. When I see that, it's like, yep, I know it's going to be game on. So, and that doesn't mean that you can't catch them, but when they're in that mode and they're in that zone, they're going to be more aggressive. The strike zone's bigger. They're going to be chasing, and it's easier to catch them. If they're not, then you got to use a different technique. And, that's where you'll see guys use some of these other baits, like a spy bait, for instance, when they're up off the bottom, to catch them. So it's something that just comes with a lot of experience and heartache from having, knowing the bass are there and you don't catch them, or you only catch one or two, or you bust up the school, so it's just, you want them more concentrated and more locked onto that structure.
For me this week, and I don't want to say too much about the week because we're both still competing, but there just seems to be a lot of fish in positions that they're not normally. They're, maybe in the center of a drain or suspended out off the grass, out away from a piece of structure where, we want to see them over that structure. We want to see them on the outside edge or on that inside edge or positioned in those areas. And then all of a sudden you'll see them out there on that active target. You'll see them bust out in the middle of a pocket where those fish are, they're not yet committed going up to the bank. So, for me, that's when those fish get in those positions that that man, I'd rather them be somewhere else because it makes them a lot more patternable or easy to duplicate, easy to catch.
Yeah, it helps when they're set up the way we want them to. It makes it a lot easier to be more efficient. You don't have to fan cast everywhere. You know where the target zone's at, right? Like say right to the edge of the grass or right on the drop or whatever whatever the cover structure is that you're fishing. So when they're roaming around and suspended, that's when it gets to be a challenge.
So we got one last question, Edwin, before we got to go. I know you got to get ready for tomorrow, but hey, Jeff Cox asked, he said, what's the number one thing you're looking for when you're running down a lake you're not familiar with?
That's always something that I just want to find something that I'm comfortable with, something that I have confidence in. If Jeff, if you're a really good dock fisherman and you're running down a lake and you see all kinds of laydowns and riprap, but then you get to a few docks, start with something that you have confidence in, that you've had experience in. Maybe it's like what Ott Defoe does, and Ott and all those cup events, it seems like he's running way up the rivers, or just do something that you have confidence in. Kevin was talking about Hackney earlier. Hackney is very, very confident with a jig and fishing slow. Kevin's super confident with a crankbait and covering water really quick. I think that's the main thing that I try to do. I just want to get someplace that I can relate to, put 4 or 5 baits in that I have confidence in, no matter where I'm at in the country, and just fish those baits and get a bite doing something that I am familiar with and something that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The biggest thing I try to do is find areas that fit the seasonal pattern. The foundation of every pattern and breaking down any lake is fishing the right water for that seasonal pattern in the current conditions that you have. So, when you go out here, just like this week at Rayburn, we know the general seasonal pattern is the spawn or pre-spawn. We know the lake has, it's got grass, it's got timber, it's got bushes in the water. But knowing that the fish want to spawn, you want to look at areas that have the right ingredients before you even stop to fish an area. So, and then it's just about picking baits that are efficient to cover the zone that you're fishing, whether it's an outside grass line or you're flipping bushes.
Hey, Bob Mull just sent in a question a few seconds ago. He says, the full moon's coming soon. How does that affect bass fishing?
Yeah. The moon is a much bigger influence than I think a lot of people give it credit for, especially this time of year, and not just for bass, but for everything in nature. Whether it's if you're a deer hunter, and Edwin's a big deer hunter as well too, how important the full moon is for every cycle, whether it's when the crawfish molt or when the shad spawn or when the bluegill spawn. So you see these peak activity periods in the spring for every species on these full moon periods like that. And what happens when you have a full moon during the key spawning time, when the water temperatures are right like this, is you're going to have a lot of fish do it. And they get in weird moods at times where they don't want to feed anymore. They won't chase a bait. And you got to kind of use that instinctive or that protective instinct against them just to make them react. Instead of using a slow, lightweight jig, you might use a heavy jig just to drop it on their head in that bush, just to make them react to it, or a faster moving presentation, because they don't react to something real slow. Or it's the exact opposite. When they're locked down on a bed, you got to put something in there that they just can't tolerate there anymore. But they do get real weird when the moon comes full. I saw it last month at Red Crest down at Lake Eufaula. I was catching them with a Strike King Thunder cricket, and on that last day when I was fishing the knockout round, I had plenty of bites to have a really good day, and I just couldn't keep them on because they just weren't eating the bait. Right. They were thinking about spawning and they were just slapping at it, and it's frustrating, but it's part of the deal. You got to understand that that's going on and adjust your techniques to it. That's when, a bait like a jerk bait or a crankbait with multiple treble hooks, if you can get them to react to it, a lot of times you can still catch them. So where with a single hook bait like a jig, you might miss some.
Yeah. Hey, Edwin, I know we're running out of time, so I got one last question for you. Steve Rose asked you, are fish attractants worth it with soft plastics? I know you're running the Max Scent and the power bait, so just wanted your thoughts to how you would answer this one.
100%. You know, we've seen all the success of Max Scent, you know, on those smallmouth fisheries, and I think people are just now seeing the advantage of that Max Scent with largemouth, with the green side of fish. But I spent a lot of time up there at Spirit Lake at the Berkley facilities, and I'm just blown away by the scientific research that they put into it all. And you know, I think it's just one more tool that an angler can have to make them more confident. You know, if you're not getting a lot of bites, and confidence, I feel like, is everything. I mean, you talk to Kevin. I mean, Kevin's built a career on just being more confident than everybody else. And if you have more confidence in your bait and it's due to having some scent in it, then by all means, it's going to help you. So I'm a full believer in it 100%.
That's awesome. Yeah. Hey, Edwin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to be watching you tomorrow as you guys are out there. So looking forward to it. Good luck, and thanks for coming on College of Bass tonight.
Appreciate it, Edwin. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the cup too. I got one of these great cups. If you guys want to support a great cause, go get you one of these cups right here. They're really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you giving me one.
Yeah, thanks again. Boy, I don't know how. I mean, obviously a great angler, all the guys are on MLF. I mean, your accomplishments when you see who you're fishing against are just even more amazing. So that's pretty cool. He's a fun guy to be with. Yeah,
Edwin's a really hard worker. He puts it all in. He has an extreme passion for it, and yeah, I mean, his success has proved it. I mean, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Edwin's a perfect example of that. So,
hey, we got a bunch more viewer questions. I want to get to as many as we can, so we'll be a little more rapid fire. But Brad Drennan has a question. He says, hey, are you ever going to put a book out on bass fishing? And I am like, go to Amazon, dude.
Yeah, no, I have a couple of different books that we've put out. And it's just, you know, in today's age, though, people want their content more real time. So I'm spending a lot more time doing, you know, videos and YouTube videos and things like that to try to teach people. I think that's one of the things that that I'm pretty good at. So I'm going to continue to keep putting out a lot of content just like this. The College of Bass, so many people, they just want to learn, you know, and I love seeing people be successful. That's the most gratifying thing about all this is just like when people come back and say, man, I tried the technique you told me about, or that I watched this video you did, and I went out and, you know, my dad caught his biggest bass, or we had a great day on the water. I took my kid and he caught his first one, you know, and that's what it's all about, is just, you know, getting people to have a better experience out there on the water and be more successful.
So if that book still is available though, isn't it? Yeah. The one with Louis Stout?
Yeah. Yep. Kevin Van Dam's Bass Strategies. You betcha.
That's awesome. Hey, we got another question from Vicki Dixon Oberding. She says, how do you determine where to start in the water column?
Yeah, a big thing with that is really that seasonal pattern, you know, and the type of lake that you're at, you know. So it's not where you start in the water column, but it's how deep you should start. You know, I mean, in the summer months when the fish are more related to offshore structure, you got a lot more to look at because there's always some fish shallow and there's obviously a population deep. But in the spring and the fall, you know, there's always going to be some shallow fish and usually a whole lot of them. So it's just really breaking down the conditions and the seasonal pattern. And, you know, that's what my book is all about. It's all about seasonal patterns and, you know, changing conditions, how bass are affected by fluctuating water or cold fronts and things like that. So it's all covered in there, and it's a science. It's far from exact. I'm far from, you know, a know-it-all in every case, because I promise you, I still learn every single time out in the water myself. But there are some basic guidelines that will help you really get on the right track a lot quicker by just following the basic seasonal patterns.
So Terry Calhoun had a comment that cracked me up, so I thought you'd get a kick because you all just keep on doing this program.
Yeah, it's been a blast. You know, it goes so fast every week. You know, the time flies, and I, you know, I enjoy doing it. So I'm sure that it's probably will not be the last that we do things like this. Plano's really hit on something when they started College of Ice. They saw right away. I think you and Brian and Chris Russell, who's Chris is the marketing manager there. He's the genius behind all of this, and it's been fun for us. But I think it's really helping people catch more fish, whether you're ice fishing or you're bass fishing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hey, we got a question from Brian Cyrus. It's actually addressed to me. He says, do you recommend the Garmin Striker 4 for a beginner tech guy? And actually, this is the winning question. So, Brian, you're also going to get a College of Bass Yeti Rambler tonight for the question. But, I guess my question on this is, the Striker 4 is a small entry-level machine, and it's awesome. But if I'm in a boat, I want a larger screen. I want a 5, 6, 7 inch, even 9-inch screen because it's easier to see. And truthfully, the tech Garmin is very easy to use in terms of intuitive. The buttons are easy. I know Humminbird is the same way. So I wouldn't be afraid of the tech. I would go out and buy what you need. And it doesn't take that much to learn either of them. So that's what owner's manuals are for. But they are very simple to do it. Hey, Kevin, this is another question for you. He said, from Michael Clemens, he says, how often are the maps updated?
Oh, so like the Humminbird Lake Master maps. So yeah, they're constantly, doing new lakes. And then occasionally they do go back and scan some of the lakes that they haven't done in quite a while. And you can see the version on the Lake Master map on it. So like if you're at a retail store, you can see if it's version 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. And the best thing to do is go to the Humminbird site, go to the Lake Master section, and you'll see for the region of the country what the most current version is, most updated version. And unfortunately, they're not updatable. It's not like you can go in and download new information when they do it. It's really not that often that they come out with a new version, but they are scanning more and more lakes all the time. They're doing more and more lakes. I know a lot of the smaller lakes and things like that. They just didn't have time to get to them. Physically, it's time consuming. It's a huge investment for them because they actually go out with a boat
back
and forth, and they can do it a little faster than we can. But still, you got to cover. You go to a place like Sam Rayburn here. The Lake Master map here is absolutely unbelievable. It shows everything shore to shore, the river channel, the creek channel, every hump, every turn, and it's mapped to a T. So when you got 115,000 acres to scan like that, it doesn't take weeks. It takes months for them to do a lake like this. So it's time consuming, and they're constantly working on more new lakes. But right now, the maps are really detailed, and I know they're working on certain areas of the country, but it's mostly mapping new lakes instead of lakes that they've already done. Once they've got it down, it's pretty hard to make it any better.
Yeah. Hey, here's an actual great question, and hopefully timely one for you as well. But do you fish a lake differently during the week on less pressured days versus the weekend on a more pressured? Great question.
Yeah, no doubt. You got to be aware of the pressure out there. And I'll tell you, I fish a lot of places, and, Lake Fork in the spring is a place that gets a lot of pressure. But when I came here on the weekend, and our practice day was Friday and Saturday, I was blown away by the number of people on the water. Literally thousands of bass fishermen. You go into any creek or pocket, and there was a boat every 100 yards. So it's hard to go down the bank behind that many boats and expect that you're going to be super successful with that. So it's something I take a look at, and I try to do things differently. I try to fish areas that are different than what all the local pressure is happening. But no doubt that fishing on a Tuesday or a Wednesday is a lot better than on a Saturday. But most people have to work during the week, so you got to go when you can go. And that's what I tell people is there's no substitute for time on the water. But be aware of where they're at, what they're doing, and try to do something different if you can.
Great comment. Hey, one of the strongest followers of College of Bass has been Lee Kimball. He's been on every week. And you made a comment last week that really stuck with me as well. You said fishing is hard. And I think that's one of the reasons that you like it. I know it's one of the reasons I like it, because the fact that it isn't easy, it takes effort. And I think that's a great comment.
Yeah, no doubt. It's challenging to go out and be successful every single time. And tournaments are a way to measure that, to measure yourself against other great anglers. And that's what I love about it. To me, the thrill in bass fishing is, I love to catch them just like you do and everybody else does. But the thrill for me is figuring them out, figuring out the pattern, learning what they're doing, because they don't, talk, and you can't really see them for the most part. It's you're making educated guesses to figure out where they're at. And so when you have a great day and you catch them real good, it's really gratifying, and it isn't easy, and it's hard to be consistent day after day after day. And that's why when you got a field like we do here at the Bass Pro Tour of 80 guys, you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win, because, the 79 other guys are out there working just as hard, or trying to work just as hard. And there can only be one winner at the end of the week. So when you do get there and you're up on the stage and you got that trophy, it makes it all worthwhile.
Hey, before I bring up this next question, a few years back, we were on the Great Lakes fishing smallmouth, and we found this massive school, and I made a cast out, and I caught out like a 4 or 5 pound smallmouth. I thought we were absolutely going to kill them. And about 20 minutes goes by, no bites. Half hour goes on, no bite. Then I snagged a sucker. And so here, this question that's from Bill Dower, he says, how do you know you're marking bass as compared to white bass or other species?
Yeah, a lot of it for me is, again, through experience of seeing how the fish are set up on the structure. You'll see white bass really grouped up. They'll typically be high off the bottom. They move a lot. They're covering ground. You'll see like the Asian carp the same way down in Kentucky Lake or in the Tennessee River. They won't be down on the bottom. What I'm looking for when I see bass is, you'll come up over there and side image the top of that hump, and you'll see a group of 4 or 5 sitting there, and they're literally right on the bottom or a foot off, and they're pretty tight together, and they're all, just kind of sitting there relating to a depth change. That's a pretty good indication to me that those are going to be bass. Or if you graph a brush pile and you see, again, 4 or 5 of them in the top, if you see 50 of them there, and the size you can tell too, that's the one thing you'll notice after you side image a lot and you're on the same scale, you'll see relative to size. You'll see, mark them, you go in there and you fish that brush pile and you catch 4 or 5 and you go, well, hey, these are all 3 and 4 pounders. So you see in relative size how they looked on your screen to what, when you put them in your hand, you got a pretty good idea. So it comes with experience, but mostly it's how they're related to the bottom and to the structure.
Hey, we're running, believe it or not, we're running out of time already. I want to bring in a very special guest tonight. Everybody knows him as Bro. He's Brian Rosa, full-time ice fishing and open water guide in northern Minnesota, and co-host on College of Ice. Bro, man, it's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys. Great show. Couple of legends, and one of the best ever in bass. It's fun to be here talking to you guys right now from the icy north.
Well, hey, how much are you still on the lakes?
You could get out on some, but I wouldn't. It's very unsafe right now. We got early ice out, and just on your show here not too long ago, we were talking about snowstorms in bass country. And up here, we're talking about ice out now. So the world is mixed up right now. But I want to tell you, we still get big bass through the ice. You have to have a big hole to fit them.
That's impressive. So, the craziest thing is when I posted a picture a few years ago of a largemouth bass on ice, people just flipped out from the south. They're like, how can you do that? They just think that they go dormant. And that's the one thing that being from the north has taught me, is how active bass are in real cold water or even under the ice. Just because it's frozen on top, the water temperature doesn't change, down there, especially if you got a little depth to the area at all. And I'm amazed at how aggressive they can be even in that cold water. I mean, the day the ice went out in Michigan, before I came down here to Texas, I was out with a buddy and we absolutely hammered them. And they were deep. It was a real clear lake. A lot of them were 25, 30 feet deep, but they were super. I mean, the bite on that swim bait was like, punk, they weren't just easing up to it and barely putting it in their mouth. They were choking it.
It's fun catching them on this light tackle. They got nowhere to go. The weeds have laid down. So you could use lighter tackle and catch big fish. So largemouth bass are open all year. They close with walleyes. Right now, everything's closed except for panfish and sturgeon. Except on border waters, but we chase bluegills this time of year and all that stuff. But smallies close in September, and they keep it closed all the way through, and it doesn't open until walleye opens. So in the wintertime, I avoid smallies. They tend to school up in huge numbers on rock piles, and it's fun, but I don't want to take away from all the fun that everybody could have in open water, and they're vulnerable, I think, in the wintertime because literally they're all there in one spot, so I try to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
So, bro, so go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I think these the biologists in a lot of these states, they understand that's why we have the later seasons in a lot of the northern fisheries, because the lakes are clear and they know they're very susceptible in their wintering areas, and they're very susceptible in their during the spawn. So, we have year-round catch and release in Michigan, and they've done a lot of studies on that before they opened it up, and it's just made incredible opportunities for a lot more anglers, and people are taking advantage of it and learning that they're a lot more active and aggressive when people didn't think you could catch them.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun where you're at right now. A little bit of pressure, but we know you'll do good. You've had a great record on that body of water, and let's see it happen now.
I am doing. You promise me, I'll be swinging at them tomorrow in the morning.
That's awesome.
Hey, bro, we're going to be launching the College of Ice again next fall. So looking forward to doing that, and looking forward to working with you on that. So that's going to be awesome. So, hey, thanks for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Good luck, Kevin, and we'll see you later, Steve.
Thank you. Brian Brosdahl. That's pretty awesome. Hey, Kevin, we had just a couple more questions I wanted to get to. One of the questions that was from Brian Sawanis, the guy who won last week. He said, what's a good sweep speed to have on the Mega 360?
So I like to run mine fast. I want to see a refresh often. And a lot of it is exactly how I'm fishing, but like here at Sam Rayburn, I'm glued to it all day long. If you watch me out there on the live stream, I've got my head down, I'm looking at that 360, and I'm following these grass lines. I'm looking for schools of bait or bass, anything to direct my next cast to. So I want it to update as much as possible, as fast as possible. I'm just getting a quicker return that way on it. And it's kind of the same way, on your side imaging. I want to run that. I do everything fast. I want to see the most updated, fastest information that I can as I'm going out there on the water. So I like to have that speed up. The Mega 360 is just like, you're doing the same thing with yours. It's just such an awesome tool to see the structure around the boat, to see the drops, the edges, the grass, the weeds, the fish, because you got your rod right in your hand right then. And you can make that cast right at that second. And that's what I do. I wait for it to show, if I see something that looks real good, a little grass point, and the boat's moving pretty quick, I'll slow down. And as soon as it hits that object, I'm firing. I know it's 60 feet away and it's right that exact angle, and I'm making a cast right to it.
It's so fun. Hey, I have very strong feelings about this question. Now, what are your thoughts on barometric pressure when it comes to bass fishing? Is there a magic number you like to see?
I don't really look. I like to just follow the changes. When you have high pressure, it basically goes along with the conditions that are tougher. And the fish know in nature that, hey, that's not the most conducive time for me to be actively hunting for bait or food. So in low pressure, it's the exact opposite. That's when they get aggressive. The strike zone gets bigger. They're on the prowl. They're on the move. They're chasing baits further. And so you can kind of see that in the weather, as a big front's approaching or a storm's coming. You got low pressure and they'll be really active, can be some of the best fishing that there is. The beauty of it is you don't have to be, or they don't have to be active or feeding to catch them. You can make bass react even when they don't want to, by dropping a bait right on their head, using a fast fall, or an erratic presentation, or having it deflect off a rock in front of them, your crankbait or something like that. So they don't have to be feeding, but it is definitely easier when they are. If they'll run 15 feet to eat a spinnerbait, it's a whole lot better than if you got to rip the spinnerbait out of the clump of grass they're sitting in to make them react to it. So barometric pressure, it goes hand in hand with their activity level.
One of the things I don't like about looking at the barometric pressure is then you go in there with preconceived notions. I'd rather just let the fish say what's going to happen that day, and so that's why I say I have strong thoughts on that. I'm going to go fishing no matter what, and so right. and you're in the same situation. So I just don't like having any things there. Hey, one of the other questions Travis Christie has asked: are you using blade baits at all?
Yeah, so early in the spring, blade baits are deadly effective in super cold water, and same thing right at ice out. They're very good. Lipless crankbaits are kind of a similar version to it, and that's something that we carry on into it. But the original Silver Buddy, I think, is the one that everybody knows, or maybe the Head and Sonar from back in the day. But they are really good in that coldest water. And then after that, it seems like they really kind of fade off. The bass are really focused on vibration. They're really focused on those flat-sided vibrating baits when the water's real cold. I think they use their lateral line a lot in cold water to help them find food, whether it's a crawfish crawling on the bottom or a shad near them or a bluegill or whatever it is. They are really in tune with that vibration in cold water, and that's what a blade bait is all about. It's a lot of vibration. So
if you had any tips for somebody that's fishing a blade bait, how do you work the bait itself?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, I'm going to fish it on, I like it on a bait caster best. I think I keep the best feel with it. I like to go with a little heavier line than too light a line. I don't want it to fall too fast, and it's just a lift and drop. To me, the best retrieve day in, day out is probably about a 1 foot hop and drop. 1 foot up, 1 foot down. In cold water, they're pretty close. They should be locked down on the bottom, and you just want to make it fall as close to them as possible as many times as you can. So, a foot to 18 inches is what you want to do. I'm not ripping it up 5 feet and letting it go back down, just short hopping it on the bottom. So it's just like whoop, whoop, right down the break or the edge where you think they're at. And again, position the boat so that you can keep that bait in the zone where you think the bass should be setting for the whole cast if possible.
Hey, this is actually bittersweet. We're running out of time, so we're going to have to say good night to everybody. I do want to thank Kevin. I want to thank you. I want to thank Chris Russell. And I also like to thank all the viewers that have tuned in by the thousands the last several weeks. It's really incredible. A couple of reminders is if you do want to take advantage of that speed bag special and pick up some absolute awesome products for storing soft plastics and get a College of Bass Yeti mug, I would recommend you move on that quickly because we're going to run out of mugs fairly soon, but that special runs through Sunday. And also, if you want to catch College of Bass, all of the episodes are available on YouTube on both the Plano Fishing channel as well as Kevin's channel as well. So if you really want to go back and study what's been talked about, and we really have gone in depth on a lot of topics over the last several weeks. So
yeah. I can't believe it's already been 8 weeks. I mean, it just goes every week. It's something I look forward to, and it just goes, just goes so fast. And if you're looking to get an edge, all you got to do is watch the past episodes of College of Bass, right? Get your edge.
That's awesome. Kevin, good luck the rest of the week. And thank you for the chance to work with you on this. And everybody, we do have to pick the winner, by the way. Let me check. Did we get this one figured out? We do have a winner. We have Don Crona from Rhode Island is the winner tonight, and congratulations. Don will need your to private message us through Plano to get us your address, and we'll get that shipped right out. But everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us the last 8 weeks. And Kevin, again, it's been a real honor working with you.
You bet, Steve. It's been fun. I appreciate it. You put a lot of hard work into it. You do the hard work being the producer, and Kai in the background getting everything up there and getting it all set, getting the graphics and things like that. So it's a total team effort, but I've had a blast and been real proud to be part of it. And again, it's just it's great with a company like Plano. They've got the best tackle management systems out there available. If you have not looked at all the different Edge products, and I can tell you they've got some new ones coming this year for iCast. They got some new stuff. I've already gotten some samples of them. I've got to see some of them. So the Edge is going to continue.
That's awesome. Yep. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Good luck fishing, and we'll catch up with you down the road.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching The College of Bass. Join us for an all-new episode every Wednesday night.